Okay, good afternoon, PCD community. Welcome on this dark and dreary and chilly Friday afternoon.
Hello there.
Just wanted to quickly kind of remind everyone the purpose of these town halls. So one, just want to continue to further develop our community, which really is the hallmark of PCD. Two, want to share some feedback, progress, and then areas that we continue to work on to improve distance learning. And then three, to answer any questions, concerns, or just hear thoughts that you folks have to make sure that we are doing the very best we can to serve your children. This has been an exciting week. You know, two big communications came out from PCD. One was in direct response to Governor Raimondo's press conference yesterday. I think we were all expecting this, but I know that I was just really disappointed yesterday that we will be continuing distance learning for the duration of the 2019-2020 school year. And then earlier in the week, we had sent out a communication letting families know about our decision to move to a pass-fail grading system. And so I'd actually like to start with that last piece first. And to help us talk a little bit more about that, we actually have two guests on the line, two guests from higher ed. And so I'd love to turn it over to Mr. Terry Ward, our Director of College Counseling, real quick to kind of set the stage for our two guests.
Thanks very much, Mr. Folan. It's a pleasure to see everyone this afternoon. I'm delighted that we have two of the real just all-stars in college admissions who are serving colleges near us and have agreed to come and talk to us a little bit specifically about how colleges are looking at the pass-fail option that PCD has chosen along with other high schools in the nation to adopt for this particular virtual time of instruction. Our two guests are Michelle Cloutier. Michelle is the Vice President for Enrollment Management at Bryant University up in Smithfield, Rhode Island. Our other guest is Jason Cloutier. They do happen to be related. And Jason is the Regional Northeastern Director of Admissions for Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. These are two terrific professionals, and I guess I'll ask, if I may, for Michelle, if you could start with some of your thoughts on what you'd want to convey to a school community about the decision to go pass-fail, and anything else you'd like to tell us.
Sure. Well, Mr. Folan and Mr. Ward, thank you so much for this opportunity for Jason and I to connect with members of the PCD community. First, I want to begin by saying that we understand probably some of the angst that you have, not only surrounding the school year being the third trimester being distance learning, but for those of you who are in your junior year of high school, this is typically looked at as the year for colleges to be looking at. So Jason and I are here to talk with you to let you know that you're not alone. On the college level, a number of colleges and universities have gone to pass-fail grading systems for this final semester of the 2019-2020 academic year. And in conversations that I've been having with our provost and our transfer counselors is that we will accept pass-fail credits for students who are transferring in from other institutions. So we have also made a designation on our transcripts for all of our students for the spring 2020 semester, COVID-19, so that when anyone picks up that transcript, it'll be, if it's not clearly remembered by people, that this was that semester where all of us had to switch gears, be really nimble, adapt, and go on this journey of distance learning together. So with that said, I assure you that the conversations have been happening around the table in the admission office at Bryant. And although I can't speak for everyone, I would say that probably most colleges and universities are having similar conversations and recognize that many high schools across the country will transition to a pass-fail grading system for either the trimester or last semester. This in no way, shape, or form will harm your students in the selection process, similar to the level of colleges that look at honors, AP, IB curriculum. If it's not offered within that school, we won't harm your student. So as the entire country transitions likely to a pass-fail system, you will not be alone, and the admission offices will certainly recognize that this is a situation that no one wanted to be in, and we are all making the best of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Kevin and Terry, good to see you both. Going along with what Michelle had just mentioned, I think that the level of adaptability that the colleges and universities around the country are going to be facing moving forward is certainly at the forefront of kind of what our messaging happens to be. I don't think any of us have lost sight of the fact that students are voluntarily choosing to apply to our schools. Our job on the admission side is to try to find the right match, but to try to get these students in the front door, to try to get them to enroll at our universities that they've expressed interest in. So I just had a conversation with my vice president yesterday morning, actually, and he had mentioned that since this is something that Xavier does, when we look at a student's high school transcript, we're looking at their GPA. So that GPA is going to be reflective of the grades that have been earned, even with the pass-fail grades included on that. So I don't necessarily think that, from my standpoint at Xavier anyway, it's going to largely change the students' overall GPA and their potential level for receiving a successfully high scholarship at Xavier anyway. And I know that some of the other schools that we compete against in the greater Midwest area in terms of student applicants, they're kind of following that same category. We're hearing from our constituents on the high school side that they're not only doing pass-fail, but they're actually doing a pass-fail system where it's a pass with a check mark or a pass with a plus, meaning like it would be a pass on an A level, a pass with a B level, pass with a C level would be a P. So there's varying levels of pass-fail grade issuances that we're noticing some of the high schools are doing in the Midwest anyway. So I don't know if that's something you've considered. I'm not trying to plant any ideas in your head. I'm just trying to give you some options of some things that we're hearing.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Michelle. I don't want to keep these folks for a whole lot longer. Are there any quick questions that you have for these experts while we have them with us? Maybe if we could raise our blue hand if we do have a question for them. Ms. Farrington, I see that you haven't raised your blue hand, but you're raising your actual hand. I'll allow it because I'm in a good mood today.
Oh, that's a whole new thing. I don't even know about the blue hand.
Well, I have much to teach you. The floor is yours.
So my question is this, that how is that going to work then if you've got some schools doing this? I mean, it almost looks like it's a grade inflation, not a grade inflation thing, but how are you going to compare a kid who's getting a pass plus with a kid who's getting a pass and whose school doesn't use that same system? Are they reporting that they use the system? And if that's the case, how do you equilibrate this?
Well, Kate, I'll tell you, and then and maybe my wife can hop in on this in a minute, that when students apply to our universities, typically speaking, there's a high school profile that accompanies their transcript. So we have an idea as to what type of grading system they're using, 0 to 100, A to F. And there'll probably be a couple of, as Michelle mentioned, COVID-19 asterisks mentioning as to why there is a pass-fail or other types of grading systems incorporated into that. So for schools who have to recalibrate and recalculate a GPA to put on their own scale, that would be a different set of circumstances. And Kate, I don't know if you're a teacher at PCD, if you have students that are at PCD, if you have kids that are at PCD. What I would recommend that students do is reach out to their admission offices to find out how they're dealing with it, find out whom that person's admission counselor might happen to be, and then have the honest conversation. Almost all of our information can be located on our school's websites. Michelle, did I miss anything?
No, I would just add that a couple of things. The only thing common about the common application is the application form. How different colleges and universities interpret the information that's provided varies institution to institution. I think Jay is right in the fact that we see not only your traditional A, B, C, D grading scales or 0 to 100, but 7-point scales, 14-point scales, all narratives. So we are pretty well versed in trying to dig through a profile to understand the school that the student is coming from and really understanding the curriculum. Another thing I would share is that this is, I think, my 23rd class that I've been involved in enrolling across the board. And I've known Mr. Ward for all 23 of those years in some capacity. So you are in really good hands with Mr. Ward at the helm, working with your students as they pursue colleges. He likely knows someone at each institution that he's traveled with, crossed paths with, and will be able to make the case for your students that although that there was a transition and it was distance learning, that the rigor that PCD is known for will be upheld in this process. Trust in him that in his letters of recommendation or to advocate for your students that we all, have our cell phones. You can't see mine because of my background, but we talk a lot and we talk frequently. And just before we start on this town hall, Jason we're in like 2 rooms apart. I could hear him on a call with a family and a guidance counselor at another school. So we talk a lot to people like Mr. Ward at institutions all over the country. So rest assured, Mr. Ward is very well known in our field and is an incredible advocate for the students with whom he works.
Wonderful. Thank you. Stephanie, I see that your hand is up. You followed my directions.
I did. Tyler had to show me where the raise your hand signal was.
All right.
But my question is with regards to the pass-fail and how they'll be notes the transcripts for the 3rd trimester. How much weight do you foresee that colleges are actually going to be looking at these? Are these going to be looked at kind of as their recommendation letters? What does that look like? What kind of direction are teachers getting as far as those notations on the transcripts?
Michelle, you want to handle that one, or do you want me to start with it?
I'm breaking up, so I didn't hear the question fully. Was it? Can you? Well, Jake can answer, and I'll weigh in with what I think the question may be.
Stephanie, I think if I understand your question, is it how much weight are we actually going to place in the pass-fail portion of the 3rd trimester? Is that right? Right. Okay. Knowing that it's 1 trimester out of an entire academic cycle, I think the first 2 trimesters are going to be a little bit more telling than the pass-fail. I think if a student is earning an A in AP English in junior year and then gets the fail in the 3rd trimester, there's something amiss, and that's probably going to prompt a phone call from the admission officer to figure out where was the disconnect and all that. I don't foresee that happening here at all. I think that the level of empathy and the level of encouragement that the faculty and the staff at PCD and around the country are displaying towards their students to help navigate this process is going to be to the nth degree that's never been experienced before. And I firmly believe that. So they're trying to do everything that they can to get those students through this academic cycle into summer to hit the reset button, and then hopefully in the fall we'll be in a different world. And even if we're not, whatever kinks and whatever growing pains are occurring through this learning process, I have a feeling we'll be pretty well ironed out by then. So it'll be okay that if knock on wood, we have to start in the fall in an online format, there's no better class than this class to deal with it, to move forward. It's not ideal, it's very unorthodox, but we're facing that right now too, trying to figure out how we're gonna fill a class that may start online. And it's a very difficult conversation to have. But knowing that your students have the adaptability to finish one academic cycle and potentially begin the next cycle in this format, just think of how great and how wonderfully prepared they're going to be when they finally do get to college.
I think the other piece is that the transcript is only one portion of the application as a whole. Many institutions, really look at recommendations. They look at extracurricular involvements. So we don't just look at junior year. Many of us look from freshman year through the first quarter of that or trimester of the senior year. Things that can be done is there is a writing opportunity on the Common Application at most, and if colleges aren't on the Common Application, there's that personal statement. It's a really great opportunity, and I can just envision all the essays that we're going to be reading about the strength that students found in themselves or the level of growth that they found in this period, that what they were able to accomplish despite all the things stacked against them. Another thing is that many institutions offer interviews. So students really want to put a voice to their application and give a narrative to what they experienced. That's another avenue that students can pursue as well to add a little bit more detail to the application. I would also say that although we're all facing the same pandemic, but we're all coming at it with a very different background and different perspective. There's some students whose parents may be going to work every day, putting themselves at risk, and that's a different level of anxiety, or some people may have family members who've been infected. So we understand that they're not only dealing with the academic portion of this, but that there is some social and lots of anxiety surrounding that certainly will impact the day-to-day of that work. So have faith and trust in that the people on the other side of that application recognize these challenges that everyone's facing, and we really do want to afford the students every opportunity to be successful at our universities.
And Kevin, I believe I saw one of the questions in the chat box feature about SAT and ACTs.
Yep, I was just going to tee up for that. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, no trouble. I read somewhere at the end of last week that almost, I believe it's a fourth of the colleges in the U.S., might even be higher at the end of this week, are already SAT or ACT optional anyway. So for the high school juniors that were scheduled to take an SAT or an ACT right now, maybe taking another one at the beginning of summer and then scheduling themselves for one in September or October, I have a feeling by the time next fall rolls around, my gut instinct's telling me that we may even see 50% of the country at schools of higher education being test optional. So for your students that have a high anxiety about the SAT or ACT before COVID-19, but now are stressing about even taking the exam and how that's going to be administered, looking at schools like Bryant, like Xavier, which have been test optional for several years now, may certainly be a worthy venture for them to look into.
Michelle, anything else for you to add to that?
No, I think we're all bracing for more applications where they'll be test optional, and the different more intensive review that those files get. But I think that we will adapt. Every student across the country is facing the issues with the lack of SAT or ACT. We all want to enroll strong classes that are engaged members of the community. So we will adapt our practices for the student so that they can apply to engage with colleges across the country, to be able to find a place that next year at this time, for those of you who have juniors in your family, can feel really good about where they're going off to college. Maybe local.
Well, Michelle and Jason, thank you so much for joining us, on behalf of the entire PCD community. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy lives to impart some of your wisdom and knowledge for us. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Happy to do it.
Have a nice
weekend,
weekend,
everyone.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Terry, any final word on this before we pivot?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground there. I mean, I wouldn't contradict a thing of what they said, except to say, please always be in touch with me from any class, of course, about the college admissions process and how it is rolling forward here. And I will do, as I have been doing, keeps especially the juniors in mind as significant developments occur.
Thank you. And just a final thought on that. I know that Jason was talking about, kind of a pass with a check or a plus. As I'm sure you can imagine, a community like PCD, as broad and diverse as it is, we've had a number of different reactions to this decision. We've had a number of families applaud the decision. We've had, particularly a number of parents of juniors just express concern. Is this going to impact my child's chance at getting into whatever school that they want to go to? And so I hope that Michelle's and Jason's thoughts have hopefully mitigated any of those concerns. What we're also talking about right now, for families and for teachers that feel that it would be prudent, perhaps there will be an opportunity in some of these lengthier narrative comments to explicitly say, Johnny or Susie would have gotten this grade in my class, particularly if they were doing a really, really good job. So just know that we are trying to be really thoughtful in our approach for these transcripts and really trying to use this as a way to help your child, not to hurt them. But again, as Terry offered, if you want to speak with Terry, if you want to speak with me, if you want to speak with Jen Aitken about this, let's be sure to follow up. So thank you. Moving on, if we can. So I wanted to quickly go over some of the survey feedback. I think, as I said to my leadership team on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think to some degree that the honeymoon is a little bit over after the first couple of weeks where there was just a lot of positivity and, hey, this is actually kind of fun and cool. I think some of the shine has worn off a little bit, and I think that was pretty evident in the survey. So in looking at some of the specific numbers, the overall satisfaction on April 3rd was 4.1, and on April 17th, it was 3.7. So not a drastic fall off, but as a competitive guy and someone that always wants to see progress, I was a little bit disheartened to see that. But again, I'll always appreciate the honest feedback. And then in drilling down to some of the specific narrative comments, it just seemed like the overall feedback was less about any negativity about what we are delivering and more just a sense of overall frustration with what's going on. I think one of the specific comments that stood out to me was, I'm frustrated with the situation itself. The virtual setup is a poor substitute for doing school, but we have no choice. I wish I could argue with that. I agree. I mean, the entire purpose of PCD is for that face-to-face, intimate connection between students and teachers. And even though I think our teachers are doing a heck of a job of delivering a quality education through the Zoom platform, of course, nothing beats that face-to-face, in-person connection. A few other themes that emerged in the survey that I wanted to share, just some reported tech and connectivity issues. I know, again, that our IT director extraordinaire, Justin King, has been very busy these last several weeks helping students and families navigate some of these hiccups. I know that there was a desire to incorporate some more physical activity into our days. I hope that for anyone who attended our morning assembly on Tuesday saw that I took an intentional 3-minute pause so that our students and teachers could do either 20 push-ups, I think it was 50 jumping jacks, or maybe a 1-minute plank. And I know some teachers were rubbing me a little bit, just saying, hey, that's the most exercise I've gotten in a little while. So students, stay tuned. There's going to be some more of that. And then there were also just some comments, just varying degrees of, Mr. Folan, there's way too much structure. And then also, hey, there's not enough structure. Overall, it seemed like people were pretty pleased with the schedule. I think a couple of concerns about it. It seems like my child is getting out a little bit early. And again, just with, physical and mental health as our kind of primary North Star, wanting to limit the amount of screen time that our students have is just really important and something that we are trying to keep at the forefront of our planning. I did want to talk quickly about the calendar. So by next Wednesday, we will have a more specific calendar for the balance of the school year. I did just want to share a couple of dates that are coming up. So on May 4th and May 22nd, there's actually going to be no school. I'm not sure how much we realize, but these teachers have to plan so much more for virtual school than they have to plan for a typical kind of normal day of class. So in order to give them some of that planning time that they need, we are going to take May 4th and May 22nd as a day for them to do some planning. On May 7th, there is going to be a trivia night, so be on the lookout for an invite to that. Thanks to parent Scott Cordishi, he is going to host that, and so we're hoping to have a little bit of fun. think one of the things we've also decided is that for a lot of these tried and true traditions that we have at PCD in the spring, we're really trying to keep them on the schedule, but to pivot from an in-person experience to a virtual experience. Two specific examples of that. On May 15th, we are still planning on having our middle school Grandparents' Day. Of course, it's going to be in a virtual format, so stay tuned for some directions on that. And then on May 20th, we are also going to have our virtual field day. If you have no idea how that's going to happen, Mr. Harper and Ms. Pacheco, they are going to roll out some directions, but I'm sure that it's going to be a great community builder for us. And I know one other thing that we're planning on, I don't have a date in mind just yet. You know, we've got this gorgeous turf field out there that is just ready for our soccer players and lacrosse players to get out there and run around on. And of course, we can't just yet, but we do want to have some sort of turf field celebration, maybe some sort of socially distant ribbon cutting ceremony. So stay tuned with that. And so again, by Wednesday, we will have a specific calendar for the balance of the school year. At that, let me pause. Are there any questions, any concerns that you folks have in mind? Okay, so Sarah Bates, we can all just look in the chat bar. So we were having some issues with Wi-Fi due to the amount of people that were using it at our home. The Folan family can relate to that. We purchased this a few days ago, set it up last night, and what a huge difference today. Thank you for that tip. I appreciate it. If there are some other questions you have, maybe you can punch it into the chat bar or you can raise your hand. We've got a nice comment from Ms. Costa. Thank you to everyone who made masks. We donated 58 handmade masks to the staff at Miriam Hospital. They were very appreciative. I believe we also dropped off some pizzas. And I think Ms. Costa let me know that anytime we drop off pizzas to some doctors and nurses, it's always appreciated. So Ms. Costa, thank you so much for spearheading this effort. It was wonderful. Okay, and Ms. Vokey is asking, what about grades for the school year? I understand the pass-fail for the trimester, but I'm concerned about a full year grade. Ms. Aitken, if I can maybe turn it over to you.
Sure. So the decision that we came to was that it would reflect the year more accurately to not calculate a final grade and let each of those trimester grades stand on their own. So the transcript would include, for this 2019-20 school year, would include the student's first trimester grade, second trimester grade, and then the pass-fail for the third trimester, along with the teacher narratives that will accompany those grades. So there was no way to calculate a final grade that didn't either put too much weight on the first two trimesters or too little weight on another trimester where we are pass-fail. So this seemed like the best way, to represent the year as accurately as possible without having too much of an impact.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
I hope that answers your question, April. If not, I'm happy to follow up offline with you. The dreaded question, what about the seniors' activities at the end of the year? Yeah, I mean, of course, my thoughts have really been with the seniors and even our 8th graders. I think a lot of these culminating activities at the end of the year are for these students who are getting ready to make these transitions. Know that the administration and our board is really committed to having some sort of in-person graduation ceremony. Obviously, that's not going to take place on June 10th. So to some degree, it's a wait and see. Obviously, we need to make sure that the health and safety of our students, our families, and our faculty and staff is at the forefront of our planning. We are going to do something on June 10th. I don't know if we're going to invite some seniors and 8th graders to campus to celebrate something in a socially distant way. I don't know if I will be making some house calls to individual homes, but I do want to make sure that on June 10th, there is some delineation that, assuming that seniors do what they need to do over the next 6 weeks, this will be the end of their high school career. And so we want to make sure that that's reflected on June 10th, and then the ceremony itself will be to be determined. Any award ceremony, again, I think that's to be determined. In an ideal scenario, I would love to combine some sort of graduation ceremony with an award ceremony, and ideally some sort of dinner. I think as COVID-19, as we continue to learn more in the coming weeks, I think we're going to know more if we'll be able to do something in person, or if maybe an award ceremony will be done in some sort of virtual format. But know that we are thinking about that. Certainly, if you have thoughts, if you have ideas, please send them along to me, because as I'm sure you can imagine, we are trying to figure this out as we go. Will there be yearbooks? Yes, there will be yearbooks, absolutely. Ms. O'Donnell, I'm not sure if you are on and if you want to say something. I know that they are planning on being delivered to school in early June. Ms. O'Donnell?
Hi, yes,
Hi.
actually. So the yearbook actually went to print the beginning of April. So while we couldn't do the hustle that we usually do to get spring sports in, we did what we could do, and we have the whole year documented up until, and we actually even received a bunch of photos from kids doing what they're doing right now, and at the beginning of break as well. So I actually, and there's actually a nice mood to it. You can kind of see the flow of the year from very, very active to then a little more pensive. I think you'll enjoy.
Thanks, Michaela, for still doing this.
Okay.
And I know that Joanne, parking lot drive-through, there is going to be something for sure, absolutely. And I'm wondering if we can somehow do something kind of in conjunction with the celebration of the turf field, handing out some yearbooks. I know that we've also got a special surprise coming for our 8th graders and for our seniors. So stay tuned. Sarah Kelly, are camps completely canceled? So if anyone has visited our summer camps website, you will see that we have actually pivoted all of our summer camps to a virtual format. I know that initially took me a little while. Like when I think of a summer camp, I think of my kids running around outside, breaking a sweat, running in a sprinkler, swimming in a pool, being outside. And yet I think what we've all been confronted with is having to kind of reimagine what some of this is going to look like. And so what we are doing, there's going to be 2 concurrent tracks. One is going to be a virtual summer camp where we're still going to have culinary camp. We're still going to have our fashion camp. We're still going to have arts and exploration. And we're also going to have, and I think this is going to be geared a little bit more to some of our friends that have not been at PCD, but more of an academic camp, particularly focused on math. A lot of the anecdotal feedback that I've been getting from a lot of our, kind of just in the periphery, is that distance learning has not been going very well, and families very concerned that their child is going to fall behind. And I think especially because math is one of these subject areas where it builds on top of each other year after year. We want to make sure that we're helping families, because we really feel like at PCD, we've kind of figured out this whole distance learning. And so Brad Clarkson he's put together a math curriculum over the summer for families to sign up for. Again, if PCD families want to do that, you can. But our commitment to you folks is that so long as your students stay in the game for the next 6 weeks, they will be more than prepared to move on to the next grade level, particularly with regards to math. Is Amet Schwartz, are you on? And if so, any chance you would want to put a plug in for summer camps? Or Miss Carl? And if not, that's okay. This is certainly.
I'd be happy to plug camp. Are you kidding?
Hey, there you go.
We are so excited to, as you say, pivot to the virtual camp. Kids need kids. Kids need to have fun, and parents need help. So PCD has, we've circled the wagons and figured this out. I'm really proud to be a part of the team that is working towards making a really vibrant summer program. Yes, it's going to look different, but I'm excited. I think it's going to be fantastic. And if there's a possibility that we can go back to being on campus, we're going to take this model and bring it home and see everyone on campus. So we have a working model that will be used virtually and then turned around to live camp if we're allowed. So, and I mean live camp meaning in person, because virtual camp will be live. So if there's specific questions, I am so happy to answer them. Please spread the word. I don't know, you know, Gina was talking yesterday about whether camps are going to happen or not, you know, what that's going to look like in Rhode Island. So we're taking it one day at a time, but just know that we're working hard to make it a great program.
Thanks, Jen. That was awesome. All right, what else we got? Mr. Clarkson, do you want to say something? I don't want to shortchange you, my friend.
I don't, but we are planning on going virtual for the all academic summer programming. And if we can go live on campus, we absolutely will. But we can, they'll pretty much be running the same type of scheduling. So more information to come.
Excellent. Thanks, Brett. I think if there are no other questions, perhaps we can start to wrap up. I guess my final thought is there are 6 weeks left in the academic year. We are not ending early. I know that some other schools in the area have, and the last thing I want to do, we are not going to shortchange your kids. They are still going to get a great education. It's going to look different. As the survey indicated, yes, it is going to be different. It's not that in-person attention that you normally get and that's normally equated with PCD. Yet your kids are still going to get served very well academically. We're still trying to figure out how to engage them socially. I know that there were a couple of complaints about my morning meetings. I'm going to work hard to keep them fresh and fun and upbeat and purposeful. We're still going to meet with advisors, but let's just make a commitment. We are going to finish this strong. We are not going to limp across the finish line. Okay, we've got 6 weeks left. Let's stay in the game. We are going to make delicious lemonade out of these lemons that life has thrown us. And we are going to launch into the summer feeling good about the way that we finished up the year. Okay. As always, if you ever need to have a conversation about your child or about your family, you send me an email, you send me a text message, you reach out to me, you let me know. Even though we are distant, you know, we're not far away. Okay. I will hang on for another couple of minutes. If you need to connect, let's do so now. I am going to stop the recording now, and you can let folks know that we will send this out probably in the next few hours once this gigantic file downloads onto my computer, okay? Have a fantastic weekend. Mother Nature looks like she's giving us a good one tomorrow. Sunday, not so much, but enjoy Saturday. Get outside, get some of that vitamin D, and I look forward to seeing everyone on Monday, okay? You folks are awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.